Welcome to Between the Sheets, the non-judgmental podcast where we're going to cover various sexual health and wellness topics. I'm your host, Dr. Stephanie Zwonitzer. I'm a urology and sexual health nurse practitioner, and I love helping my patients and listeners discover and develop their most satisfying sexual experiences. Between the Sheets is here to normalize the conversations about sexual health and cover everything from basic anatomy to the most taboo topics and everything in between. Real talk, real pleasure, one episode at a time. So come on, let's get between the sheets. This episode is sponsored by Boston Scientific and its educational website on erectile dysfunction, edcure.com. One study estimated that more than 50% of men over the age of 40 have some degree of erectile dysfunction, which can be frustrating and confusing. Go to edcure.com to find information on erectile dysfunction and treatment options, including long-term treatment options offered by Boston Scientific. Boston Scientific does not endorse any statements or opinions expressed during this episode. Hey guys, welcome back to Between the Sheets. I am happy to have you here today. We have another great guest on today. We have Dr. Jess Armine. He is a functional medicine practitioner with nearly 50 years of clinical experience, specializing in long COVID, post-viral syndromes, and complex chronic illness. His work focuses on the mitochondrial dysfunction, immune dysregulation, oxidative stress, and nervous system imbalance. He helps patients recover when conventional approaches fall short. He's also a researcher, educator, and podcast host dedicated to translating complex science into practical healing strategies. Welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity
Absolutely.
to speak to your audience.
Yeah, I always get excited when I get to talk to people outside of conventional medicine because I think there is definitely a place for conventional medicine and it does many good things, but it misses the mark on a lot too. And so I really appreciate having other perspectives to really get to the bottom of why we experience some of these issues.
I agree with you. I teach an awful lot of people in the allopathic and alternative medicine profession. I always start off with, traditional medicine can't cure everything, alternative medicine can't cure everything, but if we work together, think about how much we can cure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have a lot of patients that will come in and, hey, how do you feel about acupuncture? Or how do you feel about this? I'm like, look, if we all work together, we can probably get you a lot better than if each of us just kind of individually do something. So
Sure.
yeah, I absolutely love the kind of combination that we can do with conventional and more Eastern medicines, functional medicine kind of standpoints. So how do you get into the field of mitochondria and how has that kind of developed over your career?
Well, I started out as a paramedic in New York City, and then I got my degree as a registered nurse and worked mostly ER and ICU. And when I studied to be a chiropractor and graduated in 1986, I practiced traditional chiropractic for a while. I became interested in alternative medicine, the broader concept. one of my sons developed schizophrenia, and he this is a very intelligent boy who read Dante's Inferno when he was 10 and explained it to me. I was like okay. He says like, nice. Okay. I put my head down and just walked out of the room. So anyway, when they gave him medicine to he became essentially a non-entity. And I'm not anti-medicine. I'm not anti-anything. I'm anti the injudicious use of anything, the unthinking use of anything. But that's developed over time. So when I dove into ways of balancing his neurotransmitters and balancing his condition from at least my point of view, and I also worked with an integrated psychiatrist who is one of the most brilliant women on the planet who understand both sides of the fence. He got better. He's not, like anybody else. He's not completely better because I'm Dad. He doesn't listen to me. Okay, simple as that. Like, I'm Dad. I'm like, yeah, I'm just going to listen to Dr. So-and-so. Anyway, so, but in that journey, I began to learn about genetics. I was at the very forefront of the genetic craze, if you will, right now. So I understand it I became certified I took a course and graduated in a concept of neuroendocrinology, which is the nervous system and the endocrine system and the immune system, how they communicate. And most of that was learning about mitochondrial function. That the knowledge of mitochondrial function has gotten better over the years, okay, more exacting. And for lay people out there, The mitochondria is your energy factor, right? It's that little thing when you're in school, the teacher drew a circle, that's the cell, here's the nucleus, little dots, there's the cytoplasm, here's the vacuole, and they drew something that looked like a racetrack and said, that's the mitochondria, we're on to the next thing. Yeah, it's just like, we know what it does, we just don't know how it does it. It's magic, there would be magic. So by and by, I ended up in a ton of research groups, written papers on how different things affect the mitochondria, and basically how the energy producing mechanisms in your body is kind of the base reason for all illnesses. Okay, Dr. Navio, an MD PhD in 2013, wrote a paper on something called the cell glandular response, which is the basis of all illness. Okay, so it's cellular dysfunction, and he identified scientifically things that injure the cells. You might think toxins, makes sense. Microbes, makes sense. But also all the psychological, emotional, and spiritual traumas that we face injure the cell in equal measure as toxins and microbes. Up until that time, we were saying, oh, this is all in your head. But what that did was reflex research and found out that things like depression and anxiety can support the growth of pro-inflammatory cytokines, which are things that create inflammation. Chronic inflammation is what expresses as sexual dysfunction. I keep saying erectile. I'm sorry. Erectile dysfunction, lack of libido, and things like all the diseases you can think of, autoimmune diseases, diabetes, cancer, everything. Think of it usually has chronic inflammation in the base. So what got put together there was, yes, there are root causes, things that can initiate the cell immunity response. Normally, when you have an acute condition, it will reverse itself. Let's say you have a strep throat and don't use your antibiotic, and you feel terrible for a couple of days, and you start feeling a bit better. But then there's that day where you turn the corner and get better quickly. That's when the cell danger response reverses itself. But when it's consistent, when you have either multiple reasons, or one reason that keeps, like PTSD, that keeps rearing its ugly head, that cell danger response doesn't resolve. And then you have cellular dysfunction, which mind you, I'm talking about mitochondria, okay? And you start getting all the downstream effects of gut syndrome, chronic inflammation, neurotransmitter imbalance, hormonal imbalance. So as I understood that, I started looking back and thinking, what's going on? Where are the stones left unturned? Okay? And as you notice, I've been in practice for quite a while. And I noticed that was one issue that most practitioners and most patients didn't address. And that was the cellular function. So the common wisdom is, okay, if I take care of the root cause of the body, it'll heal itself. But in a chronic condition, that's not true. Okay? The downstream effects, whatever the effects are of the symptom, usually are from dysfunctions that have happened from the root causes. But a lot of times you're at a point where there's just not getting symptoms involved, if you will, it's gone too far. And I started looking at it. And I said, gee, if we can correct that and that at the same time, both ends, people will get better. And I had to jump into that. What was necessary was learning how to, if you will, fix a cell. Cells put cells together, you get tissue. The tissue together, you get organs. Put organs together, you get a body. So whereas most methods of treatment, including alternative medicine, looks from the outside in, hormones, it's that. Nobody was looking at the actual cell function. Now, the simplicity of it, it's been said, body is intricately simple and simply intricate, is that to get the cells to function, you have to supply the biochemical processes of what they need to work. Things like vitamins and minerals into the cells. Things like phospholipids to the cell membrane. And consideration of all the factors that produce energy. Okay, the big words are like things like glycolysis, the Krebs cycle, and all the different pathways that help create energy. And then when you start looking at light, see all the blockages were. Like, okay. And that whole treatment time, and understanding that even if you have a hormonal problem, I
Mm-hmm.
did a lecture for the Ultimate Hormones Conference, and they had a lot of hormone practitioners there. But my lecture was, when you're doing everything right, nobody's getting better. Where do you look? Okay, that's where that endocrinology came in. If your hormones are just, I'm doing everything right, everything I was taught to do, the patient's cooperative, if they get a good attitude, everything is perfect. How come they're not better?
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's doing anything wrong.
Yeah.
Okay, I just gave the notions to look. So I can look at the immune system, or look at the neurotransmitter system. Okay, and there's some people who had mood problems from neurotransmitters, fix their hormones, and that gets better. But if you consider the whole triangle, people who have chronic illnesses that haven't been successful elsewhere, that's usually where you're going to find it. As part of that, mitochondrial function has to be the primary thought pattern. You have to produce energy. No
Mm-hmm.
matter what you have in your system, you need energy. Now, if you're sitting out looking at your mitochondria are working to a certain degree, obviously, otherwise you'd be alive. Okay?
Yeah.
It's a matter of degree. It's not on or off. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
It's a matter of degree. And one of the pictures I get to my patients, remember, you've got 30 trillion cells, and within those cells, you have probably, let's say, an average of 200 to 2,000 mitochondria per cell. You do the math, okay? Each of the mitochondria has all these little things. Chris said all the electron transport chains all over it. We're talking about numbers that I can't conceive, but there's a lot of fixing to be done, okay? So if the amount of ATP is lowered, so it's at 95% normal and it's down to 80%, you're going to feel it. Okay, then if you get
Mm-hmm.
something like COVID with the spike protein, it'll drop significantly. That's why in long COVID, you're seeing a lot of the diseases come out, terrible cancer, pulmonary disease in young, because the amount of mitochondrial function has dropped significantly. It's interesting how those studies came out just when, the vaccinations, everything was kind of calming down, but it was
Mm-hmm.
there. Instead of engaging in conspiracy theory, let's take the information and see how we can heal people. Okay. By the way, if you want to know if you have long COVID, you have symptoms, right? If you want to know if it's from the COVID, if you were ill beforehand, before the pandemic,
Yeah.
and
Mm-hmm.
here's a real trick. A lot of people, because it's a long-term thing, kind of fob off some of the information, some of these symptoms. But if you look at your condition now as compared to, and you're like, no, I used to be able to do X, Y, Z,
Mm-hmm.
okay, but I can't do it now. Consider that possibility because there are ways of treating it very successfully. But basically, that's how I learned about mitochondrial function. And I created a thought paradigm called consider genetic predisposition, neuroimmunology, mitochondrial function, and cell membrane integrity. It's
Mm-hmm.
not a treatment parameter, but it is a thought paradigm. So that if we consider those things in the realm of the stones left unturned, take a really good history to find out where the root causes are, okay,
Mm-hmm.
at least where index of suspicion should be. We're not going to miss too much. My patients are, people who've been here, there, and everywhere, and, they haven't gotten success. So I have the benefit of being able to review everything that has been done before,
Mm-hmm.
okay? That's what they go boom, 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 boom. And often what they need to do is very consistently, it's not taking care of yourself, not taking care of the foundation of the body, something called the terrain. The other thing that I find is that there are certain things that were not considered significant in the 2020 hindsight should have been consistent. But guess what? It's just following Sherlock Holmes. When you rule out the impossible, whatever's left, however improbable, must be the truth. So when I go back over things and I say, gee, that was thought about, but not giving a lot of weight, this, and this, maybe I should look at that because something else well. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I look real smart, but it's really a really out process.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. So, if I have people coming in with, fatigue and hot flashes and things that I look at and I'm like, oh my gosh, you have perimenopause symptoms, or my guys have fatigue, ED, no stamina, no libido. And I'm like, your testosterone's low. Let's treat that. How do I know when it's not just that? And I also need to kind of get down to that cellular level. Is it kind of trial and error? Like I put them on the hormones, and if that doesn't do enough, then there's something else? Or should I and other practitioners be doing something earlier on to identify it?
Well, let's do this in a proper balance, okay, in my estimation. Okay. I'm always a great believer in Occam's razor, okay,
Hmm.
which is not a shaving company. It is a philosophical principle that essentially says the simplest explanation is usually the truth. So always do what you know to do well. Okay. Always look at, and the time when you start looking elsewhere is when you followed your protocols and followed your algorithms and done all your considerations, and either it's only partially better, okay, and they said maybe the libido has come back, but the energy is still declining, okay. Then you know we should start looking into it,
Hmm.
right? And I know that my medical colleagues said they go do pretty good workup. Look for the obvious things. Look for the worst things. Look for diabetes. Look for thyroid dysfunction. Look for anemia. Okay, and that's wonderful because when I ended up looking at it from an alternative medicine, if they haven't ruled that stuff out, I'm like, okay, see you later. Go to your doctor. Just tell your doctor, please,
Yeah.
please, okay? Because I could choose something if a person's anemic, they're not going to get better.
Hmm.
If they have raging diabetes, they're not going to get better.
Right.
And Dr. House says everybody lies.
Yeah.
It's not really, it's true. But they're not. People don't lie on purpose.
Yeah.
We're stuck in a system where we have to go through things quickly. Sadly, we depend on the patient to tell us what is significant, and they may not consider certain things significant for either the fact that they don't think it's significant, they're embarrassed by it, or whatever it happens to be. If a man has ED and you're not checking the circulation, you're not checking, all the other parameters that can cause it that could be dangerous down the road, he's due. Okay, he's due. But if you've done, your due diligence shows up. Okay,
Mhm.
and you're sitting there and you're scratching your head, which is a vicarious thing to do. It's like, okay, this I got from studying genetics and disease.
Yeah.
It's like, what does that mean? Okay, but
Right.
it can't mean that. It can,
That's why I didn't get into the molecular level. I like my
there
hair.
you go. You like hair.
Yes.
The reality is that if you get into the point where you're scratching your head and you've already gone through that's too weird, and then you started going, you say to yourself, okay, maybe I should go back to basics. Okay, and that's when you start doing this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, there's no magic form, but the fact is that sexual dysfunction is not just it's not just psychological or hormonal. It's often a reflection of cellular energy, nervous system safety, and immune reaction, or immune burden, if you will. Okay,
Hmm.
we start looking at those things, then we might find something that is burdening the system to the point that it's engendering the cellular interest. You know,
Mm.
then it has low libido. Most guys, most men go through menopause in on their 80s. Okay, as I understand it. Maybe you're wrong. Please correct me. Okay, and so why would they have low T?
Hmm.
And I see this with young men now, right? 30 in their 30s. Why would they
Hmm.
have low T? There are going to be guys like that. I mean, certainly there's medical conditions that will cause that. But by and large, you can get the testosterone,
Hmm.
but that's not fixing the problem. It's helping. You know, I,
Yeah.
I hate to be a man that with low libido or a woman with low libido and have to, if you have to compensate for something, that's great, but it shouldn't stop there.
Yeah.
Okay. In genetics world, they always talk about methylation,
Hmm.
as if it's big bugaboo, or the gene MTHFR, which, one gene in the pathway. Okay. Let's not overdo it, guys. All right. There's lots of them before, there's lots of them after. Okay. You have to understand the pathway. But if the folate pathway, which is their MTHFR, that produces phosphomethyl folate, that's a folate we use in our body. If you give somebody phosphomethyl folate, that's fine, except one thing.
Hmm.
You have to give it to them forever if you don't fix the pathway. And to
Hmm.
fix the pathway, you have to understand what pathology created that. It's not just the polymorphisms that slow down the pathway. How come they can't digest their folate? So it can be pulled into the
Hmm.
pathway. If they don't have ATP and NAD3, the enzyme will work. Okay, they'll work, but they'll work slowly. And if there's polymorphisms or genetic variants that don't work as well as, let's say, a normal gene. Okay, a normal
Hmm.
gene. Okay, so normal genes create enzymes. Okay, and you put that together, then put a lot of oxidative stress in, which blocks up pathways. Okay,
Mm.
you're not going to produce. You're not going to produce the precursor of 5-methyl and the big word is 5-methyl. When I see something like that, guys, they won't. Okay, you're not going to be impressed. I can pronounce polysyllabic terms. Okay.
Right.
By the way, if doctors do that to you, any kind of doctor, okay, walk out. Okay, it's not worth explaining. Albert Einstein always said, if you can't explain something to a 6-year-old to the point that they can explain it to another 6-year-old, you don't know it well enough. Okay,
Yeah.
so,
I like
you
it.
know, I only do that when I'm lecturing. Like I always get that the one doctor with the round glasses and the bow tie asking ridiculous questions, and I'm like, yeah, it gets a little annoying after a while. I'm like,
Yeah.
So I start getting more and more technical until I see his eyes glass open. I'm like, okay, yeah.
Nailed it.
He's well, next. Oh, no, it's really funny. One time I did that, and I said, guys, if you don't cut it out, you're not going to get your juice boxes. And I'm not going to tell you a story on the listening egg after lunch. They all giggled, but after I went out during lunch and I got the juice box. Right?
Yeah.
I handed them out. What was really cute was here are these people with MDs, PhDs, what rows next to their names. They're sitting there like this with the juice box. And one of them joked with me and said, aren't you going to tell us a story? I'm like, yes. So I did my case study then instead at the end of the day.
That's great.
I love a trip playing field with humor. Okay. And what was wonderful there, you can always tell when you're getting across to people. They ask good questions. Okay. And I'll make light of myself. I'll make light of my profession. I will interact with people because I really believe that disease is a bully. And we either punch it in the nose or we laugh at it. Okay. And for us practitioners, the more tools you have in your toolbox when it becomes necessary. And like when we were in school, you had a wrong diagnosis. If you don't know something exists, how can you diagnose it? Okay. If you don't think about the biochemical process and there's something you do about it, okay, you're not going to look down on that. So we're looking at where are we?
So basically, it all boils down to we need the mitochondria to work correctly for all of our functions, but our sexual function as well. And what you're saying is if we're trying to address these situations and we're not making improvements, then we need to take it down to that cellular level and see how we can support the mitochondria along with the other treatment methods that maybe we're doing.
Well, let's think about it like this. Sexual arousal is a very high energy, high ATP, high energy demand. Fatigue is your body's prioritizing survival over reproduction.
Yeah.
If your body's struggling to survive, it won't prioritize anything. Simple as that. Okay. Everything I'm saying can sound very simple and logical. And you know something? It doesn't mean any doctor is doing anything wrong. As I spoke with Dr. Stephanie here, you do what you know to do. Okay, so you have to sit back and say, "Gee, it's just not working." You start thinking about other things. So arousal requires a parasympathetic state, a state of calm. We live in a chronic stress, highly stressed environment, which pushes our sympathetic movement. Okay, sympathetic is waking up, parasympathetic is all right. Okay, simple as that. And you get really, really technical and stuff, and use very long words that everybody will everybody to sleep. I'm very good for insomnia. So you cannot feel desire if your body feels unsafe from toxins, microbes, psychological, emotional, spiritual, that kind of stuff. Okay, and this is where performance anxiety comes in. Trauma can cause this. Chronic illness can cause this. So, what kind of things can cause this kind of stuff? Well, mind you see me looking over here. I never go on a podcast or anything. I wouldn't I'm not going to do this all the time. I could, but I wouldn't disrespect the people or the host here by not being prepared. Okay, so when you see me looking over, I'm not.
I like it. Good to do your homework.
Yeah,
I do my homework too. I researched you. I know you should see what Google says about you. No. I'm just teasing.
I'm just saying, I looked you up, but anyway, so what can cause these things? Well, we talked about long COVID before. Chronic infections, which is easy to cause fatigue, brain fog, libido loss. Fatigue If you think about fatigue, it's just not enough energy. There's energy up front, okay? Yes, mitochondria, but let's just look about cellular function, okay? The immune system, when it's under stress, pumps out things called cytokines, okay? Forget the inflammation, okay? But those things that cause inflammation will suppress your hormone. And also, the powers that be in the universe made those things, and what happens when you get sick? You get tired.
Mhm.
Okay, those things make you tired so that you'll rest. Okay,
Yeah.
but if they're constantly pumping out, so what happens is over the long term, is your body's shifting into conservative energy mode. All right, let me do this, which doesn't allow for things like maintenance. Hence, this kind of stuff kind of show up. I love my partner, and I feel my I'm too tired for women to sleep. My body doesn't respond the way it used to the day. Okay, sex feels like an effort instead of connection. You
Mhm.
see, your body's not working, and you don't know why, or it shouldn't
Mhm.
be that way. You start assigning, and you start getting real picky. I've noticed that. Well, I treat a lot of autistic patients, and I can always tell when a parent does that is kind of the end thinking, because they're being picky about little things. Okay, they're not doing anything wrong. They're just in panic mode. Okay,
Mhm.
maybe it's the B6, maybe it's the magnesium, maybe it's this, whatever hit it last week or something. So if your body is this is not a lack of love. This is not a lack of attraction. It's biology. Psychological or emotional or interrelationship problems can either result from this or maybe be a causation also. Okay.
Mhm.
But when we've considered everything, it's just you have feelings, okay, depression. You have depression because you broke up with a boyfriend or girlfriend so that's situational depression, understandable. But when you have depression for no reason, called endogenous depression or depression, if you will, well, what we tend to do as humans is we kind of back and we start assigning blame, if you will, okay, on different areas or different people because we haven't feeling. And it will make logical sense, but in a good light of day, when everything's feeling good, you sit back and say, oh, well, that was dumb, you know,
Mhm.
but it makes sense now. It's our body, has it show up in men?
Mhm.
Erectile dysfunction, which can be vascular, mitochondrial, and or nervous system, testosterone suppression.
Mhm.
So you give them testosterone, but don't take care of the overriding reasons, okay,
Mhm.
what's going to happen? Eventually, somebody's going to let out. That's what's going to happen is their body will decompensate to the point that your compensation that you're giving them, whether it's supplemental or it's a hormone replacement therapy, is not going to be enough because things aren't going to work because they don't have what they need to work. And when it's low desire, which is nervous
Mhm.
system and hormone signaling, pain with sex, which is
Mhm.
inflammatory and autonomic imbalance. I know doctors definitely will tell you that, one of the reasons postmenopausal is that the vaginal area can be very thin because of postmenopausal what's for that. Yes, should you compensate for it, but the next step should be at least let's take a look at why this may happen.
Mhm.
So there's different presentations, but the same underlying. That's what I've noticed over the decades is that a lot of things have a very underlying cause, and that's where that cell being response comes in. Because when you think about the cell and you get that working, then all the manifestations of start reversing.
Mhm.
Then if you give the body what it needs to work and not micromanage it, in other words, give it what it needs to work and get out of the way, then you see the person start naturally healing. We're made to heal,
Mhm.
okay? Uh, Everything in our environment, there's things we have control over and things we don't.
Mhm.
But not everybody's sick, please. But not everybody's sick. So what do they do? They make a circumstance where they are in the world and so forth. Okay. But we have control over many things that can contribute to happens at a cellular level, and we can support that.
Mhm.
Support, simplest thing. We need every every enzyme in our biochemistry need what are called cofactors, which are basically vitamins and minerals,
Mhm.
and that makes those enzymes work at their peak speed, if you will. And you ever have the temperature taken care of? We talk about the acidic pH, which in the theory is also about. So we take vitamins, right? You get down to the pharmacy and
Mhm.
oh, look at that nice tablet. Like barely anything that gets absorbed. If you think about it, if it does break down in the stomach, and that's
Mhm.
then it's got to go through probably dysfunctional gut into the portal or liver circulation, get detoxified, that gets released into the serum. Then it's got to go through the blood vessels into the cell.
Yeah.
Got a long way to go. All right,
Yeah.
and a lot of the times we don't get, especially minerals, because our foods are definitely mineral deficient. We don't get that.
Hmm.
So what can I answer? Well, I always give my patients liposomal vitamin,
Mm.
which is very readily available. Okay, liposomal vitamins go right through the mucous membranes and get absorbed, regardless of the condition. And there are some that are better than others, but basically, you can go on Amazon or anywhere else, look up liposomal multivitamin, and you'll see them. They're in capsules now. I know the man who created the process that creates dry lipos.
Mhm.
So now you're giving yourself what you need. Okay, at least you can start giving yourself what you need. You
Mhm.
know? And that's one simple thing that almost everybody needs
Mhm.
because we're not getting our vitamins and minerals from our foods, and
Right.
we're fighting it.
Mhm.
We're for it. Okay, and yes, we can filter it to a certain degree, but
Yeah.
biology is important because it's not relationship failure many times. And
Mhm.
what I mean by that is maybe we should consider that
Mhm.
before we start getting up on the relationship, before we start getting 69 years passing off the knowledge to the next
Mhm.
generation. Okay? What I had, there's no Armine method out there. I just put out the stuff and here, use it. If you use it wrong, I'm Sicilian from Brooklyn. I'll be there with two of my friends without masks. Oh,
Right.
hey,
Right.
God said to do it this way. You know what I'm talking about? Things can happen. Things. All right. So, but what's horrible is horrible feeling that they not only are
Mhm.
because, and if we at least consider that, and like medical and alternative medicine working together, the winning combination, that's what true
Yeah.
integrative care should be. Not the integrative care
Absolutely.
where they dangle carrots and, oh, we got this, we got that. No.
Yeah.
True integrative care, we both have something called, now we work together, okay?
Mhm.
Because the way it is now, unfortunately, is that the onus of diagnosis is on the person who least treatment. You don't have the old GP who knew you from when you were a baby and referred you
Mhm.
out when appropriate, and that doctor would say, "I'll call you a doctor," and you go talk to your doctor. Your doctor will call you and say, "Okay, this is what's going on." They
Mhm.
already knew all this stuff. They would say, "Okay, this is good." Yeah, and then that's who you trusted. Was how you had
Mhm.
it. But in this particular area, what do we have to do? Well, we got to restore energy, that calm the nervous system,
Mhm.
reduce the inflammatory load. Okay, what's
Mm.
causing inflammation? And sometimes it's a matter of some of the downstream effects will be. There's a common wisdom now that a lot of disease cannot be cured. I've never heard so much baloney being chopped up and thrown around in my life. Okay,
Yeah.
because here's what happens: you get chronic, and it creates a symptom complex. There's a pathway, if you will, that creates that. And it's going to facilitate neurological pathway or habituated pathway. It's like a rut. Building a house, you get a wheelbarrow going back and forth, back and forth. You create a rut. So you can go up and on a rut. Okay. So any rain or anything, the stimulus we go down the rut because the path of least resistance. So with that chronic Lyme, it created a certain. So now you get rid of Lyme. What? So any kind of stimulation, toxic, microbial, psychological, is going to be down that rut. Give you symptoms. This is very simplistic. Symptoms of Lyme. Okay.
Mm.
So since we live in such a, if you will, disease-creating society, or you're going to have
Mhm.
symptoms of Lyme when you don't have Lyme. Okay.
Hmm.
But if you fix the pathway, okay, that
Mhm.
rut will fill in after a while. I see. I treat a lot of alcoholics and addicts, and they're the same issue. Okay,
Mhm.
it creates happening, and in order to not have that stimulation to drink or drug or whatever, okay, you have to create other habits over a long
Mhm.
period of time. And that's what it's for. Okay, but the biology of it has to be dealt with as well.
Mm.
That's what that would do is take away the cravings, which is the stimulation hormone cuts. Okay, we
Mhm.
start fixing that. That what fills in makes it much easier for them to attend to their programs and reestablish a good life, which is there's a whole lot of sadness and giving up on yourself in those programs as
Mhm.
well. So the way you do this is to fix the body. And here's the thing: intimacy will return naturally.
Mm.
In all cases, no. But if you work with a professional like Dr. Stefan, guess what? It will.
Yeah.
Okay, because now you're balanced over that triangle. You'll balance the hormones. Remember, it's not just the sex hormone, thyroid hormone, no,
Mm.
really else. Okay, they're
That's
going to be
right.
affected, and they interact this way. Now you have the
Mhm.
HPA axis, which is the adrenal. HPT axis, which is thyroid, and HPG axis, bone and ovarian.
Mhm.
And guess what? They all interact. Okay,
Yes.
they all interact. So if one's off, no one's going to be off. I always tell people I have this picture that an attack against one is an attack against all. It's true. It's
Yep.
absolutely true.
Yep.
So if we look at it and treat it in a combined manner with the
Mhm.
thought pattern, now let's correct the obvious imbalances with the only nutrient I have, and let's start fixing the body.
Mhm. Yeah.
And
I
the
love that
negative.
approach. Yeah, I mean, I think it's so important, and a lot of providers miss the mark of looking at the root cause. We're just like, "Oh, this one lab is off. Let's just focus on that." And we don't get to why was that lab off? Or like you mentioned about the hormones, I'll have patients come to me and be like, "Well, why do we check the cortisol and the thyroid stuff and my vitamins and minerals?" Well, because they all work together or against each other and they're all connected. And so I like to get a full picture of the idea in case you have no B12. Well, let's start there. Let's fix that because that might fix some other stuff. And then we can look at where you're at and then we'll fix that stuff. And it really is such it's pathways. Like you said, it's not one particular thing that we can go and fix and boom, you feel 100%. That one thing might make you feel a little bit better, but then like you're saying, we need to go and support the other areas of the pathway. So I really like that approach because that's how I like to see things too. Let's not just stop once you start to feel better. Let's get you all the way better. And I think that what you're talking about with supporting this at the cellular level is so incredibly important. And I just really appreciate you being here and talking us through all of this. If you had to leave our listeners with a couple points on whether they're already having symptoms or not even having symptoms yet, how can they best support themselves at the cellular level?
Okay. This is going to sound incredibly simple, but guess what? Talk about liposomal vitamins. So if you
Mhm.
go to Amazon or Fire or wherever, you look up type in liposomal vitamin, multivitamin, you see things from Solay and a few other companies. Get those. I mean, there are some liquid ones too, and the Protocol Protovite from the Food Nutrition's National, bit on the expensive side, but it's very good. Uh, and take the bottle directions twice a day because you're definitely low on everything. Okay?
Mhm.
Two, you might want to consider additional minerals. Okay,
Mhm.
something like I can't pronounce this stupid thing, shallot. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, the resin from the
Yep.
human contaminants. They also have some liquids that you can take in addition. I know they love some have minerals, but they're very mineral deficient. The other thing that I find very commonly is leaky gut syndrome. Okay,
Mm.
why is that important? Because the antigens get through the gut membrane, go into the basement membrane of the gut and create antigen antibody reaction, and that creates inflammation. And over time,
Mhm.
leaky gut by itself becomes the reason that your inflammation constantly. Okay,
Mm.
now if you're over 35, I can guarantee there are digestive enzymes out there that are either plant-based or animal-based or combined. Okay,
Mhm.
where you have the animal like that 10 10, then a bevy of plant-based or fruit-based now that should be taken with each meal. So you break down your foods completely. Okay.
Mm. Mhm.
Otherwise, you're not giving the body substrate, which is what it needs to work. So if you're eating protein and you don't break protein is just a big long line of amino acids. You really need. And also
Mhm.
you break them down into short little proteins like this. So it kind of makes sense. Right? And fixing what we got the very basic way of doing it is to recreate a mucus layer in the gut. And you can
Mhm.
do that with things like slippery elm or any of them. There are XOS powders, those are the stabilizers, which you might see a different boost. And I always recommend for most people this is very safe. So whatever the bottle says, just do twice. either once, twice a day. Or I'm a big believer in butyrate, which
Mm,
you can get as the tributylin, which is a short-chain fatty acid, which
okay.
when you put them in the gut, the microbiome will produce butyrate that's healed from that. Many people use glutamine. Okay,
Hmm.
you should be careful with glutamine.
Hmm.
If you use glutamine and something overplated, stop. The reason for that is glutamine includes glutamate, which is very excitatory, and there's an enzyme called GluB that converts it to GABA, which
Hmm.
a lot of people are using probiotics.
Hmm.
Probiotic craze is kind of winding down. Okay,
Hmm.
now if you're looking for probiotics, just get one that's kind of a balance of neutral bacterial. Yeah, no, by the way, if you're taking an antibiotic, you should be taking probiotics 3 times a day. They lasted me for years about that. They recently, in the past 5 years, came out with a study saying you should take probiotics when you take an antibiotic. Can't work. Went to my medical friend, picked up the paper and went, quack, 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 quack. You know,
Yeah.
so, no, you're getting killed. I know that, but you have to see the area. You know?
Right. Yeah.
It's okay. Like
Yeah.
somebody did a study.
Oh, that's amazing. I love those tips.
Yeah,
And those are
don't
really
waste it.
practical things that people can go and start doing for themselves. So I appreciate that.
That will work as far as how well you should.
Yeah, amazing. Dr. Jess, how can people get in contact with you, work with you, follow you?
Well, I offer a complimentary 30-minute, I like to call it a get acquainted session. And you can go to my website, drjessarmine.com, and there'll be a button there where you can schedule it yourself. And what we do in that meeting is you can tell me what the problems are. We can discuss it for a while. And the purpose of the meeting is to see if, so I can make a good assessment if I can actually help you or not for any other reason. Okay? And if we feel good fit, we're a good fit. As simple as that. Okay? We do that on Zoom, so we get to see each other, chat,
Mm.
so forth. If you want to follow me, if you one of the best ways, I'm on Instagram, although I'm just kind of starting with that. So that's just on 1724. Oh my God. Okay, which I'll get to Stephanie here.
Mhm.
On YouTube at Dr. Jess Armine. Okay, I have tons of videos that I've done, and on different subjects. Some of the information may be a bit outdated, but the concepts are still there. Okay.
Mhm.
And of course, if you just want to answer any question, you can Jess at drjessarmine.com. Be happy to answer it.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. This was such a unique perspective for our listeners to have something actionable that they can actually go and work on to make themselves feel better overall, but also to improve their sexual health. So I really appreciate you being here. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate this opportunity. I hope it.
Absolutely. Thank you. All right, everybody, don't forget to check out reviveish.com if you're in Maryland and want to work with me for your health and hormone and sexual health needs. And also, as always, go have some fun between the sheets. Thank you for joining us and exploring sexual health topics here on Between the Sheets. New episodes are available every Wednesday. Please subscribe and rate our podcast so we can reach more listeners. And don't forget to tell your friends, partners, and anyone who will listen about Between the Sheets. Send any comments, questions, or stories to podcastbetweenthesheets@gmail.com. It's all one word, podcastbetweenthesheets@gmail.com. Thanks for listening and go have some fun between the sheets.